Hi there, it's Asia, and today I've prepared for you a full sample answer to an IELTS Academic Writing Task 1 reported in one of the recent exams. You'll see the full sample answer in this video, and we'll also discuss a number of things you should do in your report to meet the Band 7 Plus requirements. You'll also be able to download my answer in the PDF format. Okay, let's get started! Let's have a look at our task. The chart and table below show the average number of children born to one woman and the average age of women when they had their first child in two countries between 1920 and 2019. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. Okay, on the left, we see a chart, a line chart or a line graph. Average number of children born to one woman. And we have several time periods from 1920 to 2019 and two countries, the UK and Kazakhstan. So we know how many children on average women had in each country in each of those years. The table is average age at which women had their first child. And we have the same time period and the same countries. So that's when women gave birth to their first child. So we have a chart and a table in our task. It's quite a common combination today. You may have either a chart and a table or two different charts. And some people think that the type of chart determines the type of task. But that's incorrect. Let me show you something. Have a look here. At the top, we have our table. And then we have a line chart or a line graph and a bar chart or a bar graph. The information is absolutely identical in all three of them because I actually used the table to build these charts. So it doesn't matter what type of chart you have or if you have a chart or a table. What I think matters is if you have several time periods or if all the data is presented in one time period, in 1 year, for example, or you have no dates at all. And that's how we actually split all those charts and tables into two types of tasks in my course, those with dates and without dates, because based on that, you will write your report in slightly different ways. If we have a look at our task again, all the dates are in the past, which means that you must use the past tenses in your report. If you accidentally switch to the present tense, it will be a mistake, so be careful with that. Let me show you a typical structure for any Task 1 academic report. You will have 3 or 4 paragraphs. The first paragraph, your introduction and overview. In the introduction, you introduce the topic and explain what kind of data you have. And then in the overview, you give the main thing you've learned from your task, the big picture without any detail. And I like to write them together in one paragraph. That's because then you have several sentences and it looks like a real paragraph. And if you write them separately, then for your introduction, you will only have one sentence and sometimes just one sentence for your overview. And examiners may not see them as real paragraphs. So it's safer to write those two together. Also, if you write your overview before your body paragraphs, you definitely have enough time to finish it. And this is a very important part of your Task 1 report. And then you write your body paragraphs. You shouldn't have just one and put all the information in one paragraph. You need to have at least 2 or sometimes 3. It depends on your task. You need to find a way to logically split information into body paragraphs. And depending on what you have, sometimes it's easier to have 2, sometimes 3, usually 2. Okay, we'll talk about it later. Now let's have a look at the introduction. A typical introduction is just 1 or 2 sentences long. And it's quite common to simply paraphrase the task. I think it's the quickest way to write your introduction. That's what I've done in mine. Let's read it. The line graph illustrates how many children women had on average in the UK and Kazakhstan from 1920 to 2019, while the table provides a woman's average age of first motherhood for the same countries and time period. So I've just changed some of the words. Let's compare it to the task. So instead of saying the chart, I said the line graph. The table is still the table. Instead of the verb to show, I used to illustrate and to provide data. Then, the task said the average number of children born to one woman. And I said how many children women had on average. And then I added the countries in the UK and Kazakhstan. Then the task says the average age of women when they had their first child. And I said a woman's average age of first-time motherhood. So that's a fancy expression. But as you can see, I repeated a number of key words, and that's absolutely fine. That's what you should do. You shouldn't try to change all the words because you need those key words to convey the message precisely. Now let's have a look at the overview. In your overview, you should write 1 or 2 sentences where you summarize the information and say what you've learned. What's the most important thing? Let's have a look at our task. What is the most important thing here? If we have a look at the chart, we can see that one line is above the other. So women in Kazakhstan have more children than women in the UK. They had more children throughout the period, right? Also, let's compare the beginning of the period with the end. We can see that, yes, women had more children in their 60s and then it went down. So today, women have fewer children than in the past. And it's true for both countries. Now let's have a look at the table. Again, you may notice that the age of women when they had their first child at the end in 2019 is higher than in previous years. So women have their first child later. And also, if you compare the UK and Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, the age is smaller, so women had their first child at a younger age. So these are the most important things. Let's write the overview. Over time, a general trend of deferring childbearing to a later age and having fewer children overall can be observed in both countries. Although women in Kazakhstan had their first child earlier and had more children than their UK counterparts. This is my overview. Some of the vocabulary here is quite fancy. To defer is to postpone to have something later, to have children later. And childbearing is having children. It's a formal word. And the last one, counterparts. It's really handy when you compare 2 groups of people. Women in Kazakhstan and women in the UK, they're counterparts. In your overview, you shouldn't report any small details, just the main thing. And if you have a chart and a table or 2 charts, don't forget to describe both of them, to present both of them in your overview. And if you can, find the link between the 2 charts or a chart and a table. So now we need to write 2 or 3 body paragraphs, not 1, and find a way to logically split information into those body paragraphs. So what could you talk about in the first and in the second paragraph? There are several options. I can see at least 2. Well, we could talk about the line graph in the first body paragraph and about the table in the second. That's the easiest way, and that's what I'm going to do in my report. You could talk about the UK in one paragraph and Kazakhstan in the other. Theoretically, you could split the time period into, for example, years before 1960s and after, but I think that would be more complicated in this case. Okay, let's have a look at my first body paragraph. In the first body paragraph, we are describing the chart, and we have quite a lot of information here. So you shouldn't try to describe every number, what happened in 1920 and 40 and 60 and for each country. You will lose marks for that because that's a sign of band 6 score and you probably want at least band 7. So you should select the most important numbers. What are those? These are the highest and the lowest numbers, also numbers at the beginning and at the end. In 1920, the average British woman gave birth to approximately 2 children, while the Kazakhstani average was about 3.5. In both countries, the birth rate continued to increase until the 1960s, at which point it peaked at around 2.7 and 4.5 children per woman respectively. Between 1960 and 2019, the numbers generally declined, with the end of the period displaying a rate of approximately 1.8 children per woman in the UK and 3 in Kazakhstan. And as you can see, I described the numbers at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. Let's have a look at some language. Gave birth to approximately 2 children. When we look at the chart, we can't say what exactly the number was. It was approximately 2, but perhaps it was a bit higher than 2. So, not to be wrong, we say approximately 2. Another word is respectively. It means in the same order as things were mentioned before. Around 2.7 and 4.5 children respectively. And if we have a look at the previous sentence, we mentioned British women first and Kazakhstani then, and now we know which number belongs to which country. Now let's have a look at the second body paragraph. When you're describing a table, it's a little bit less visual than a chart, so you need to look at the numbers and compare them yourself. But also we have a lot of small details here. Don't get bogged down in them. Try to find the main picture. What is the main conclusion? Well, I can see that numbers in Kazakhstan are always lower than numbers in the UK. This means that women in Kazakhstan give birth to their first child earlier. That's an important conclusion. And then I don't want to report all these numbers. So I'm going to talk about numbers at the beginning of the period and then at the end. You could talk about the highest and the lowest numbers. It's up to you. So let's have a look at my body paragraph. In terms of women's age at first childbirth, females in Kazakhstan preceded those in Britain by about 1 to 4 years across all time periods. The average age of giving birth to the first child increased slightly in both countries, from 26.5 in the UK and 23 in Kazakhstan in 1920 to 28.9 and 27.6 in 2019, respectively. And this is the second body paragraph. I began it with the linker in terms of women's age at first childbirth. So it tells us what this paragraph is about, and it also helps to link this paragraph to the previous body paragraph. Then, females in Kazakhstan, or women in Kazakhstan, preceded. That means they were earlier, they gave birth earlier. They preceded those in Britain by about 1 to 4 years across all time periods. So I just looked at the numbers in Kazakhstan and Britain and compared them, and they differed between 1 and 4 years. So I just summarized it in this simple phrase. And then I said that the average age of giving birth increased slightly. So now I need to confirm to support this description with figures. So I give figures at the beginning of the period in both countries and then at the end, and the paragraph is ready. Now let me show you the full report. Here it is, it's 211 words long. High-scoring answers are often longer because people can write at a faster pace. But if you're aiming for Band 7, then your report should probably be between 170 and 190 words. Then you will be above the limit, but also the report is not too long, so you have more time to write it, to think about all the words, and to check it, which is very important for your score. And you might have noticed that there is no conclusion in this report. That's because you don't need a conclusion in Task 1. You only need it in Task 2. You know, when IELTS examiners mark your answers, they use a set of very specific criteria. And we've discussed some of them today. But to get a Band 7 score, you must meet all of them. Not some of them, but all of them. And finish both tasks in 60 minutes, which is quite a challenge in itself. So to help you prepare for your writing, I've created online courses which will help you to write your essays more quickly, because you will learn what you need to write in each sentence step by step. You will learn how to meet each Band 7 plus requirement and how to address each type of task in Task 1 and Task 2. These courses will help you prepare in less time and achieve a higher score, and I will link them in the description if you're interested. And right now you can download the sample answer from today's lesson in the PDF format right here. Thank you so much for watching me today. Good luck with your preparation and your exam.